boy, Bad Blood.
Dude.
A lot of, I guess that's a double entendre because so much of this episode is about family and children, blood, bad blood.
Mm-hmm. And in theory, a blood disorder, I guess, the kidney thing.
Kidney disorder, yeah.
Dee Dee.
Yeah.
I had a shockingly emotional reaction to it, though.
I had definitely a different reaction than I did the first time I saw it, which was, 1,500 years ago. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I want to talk about why our reactions have changed too. That's an interesting conversation. But let's get into it. Before we do that,
it brought up a lot, actually, it brought up a lot of interesting philosophical things that I'm curious about. Also,
we get Stacey Keach.
Fresh from King Lear at the Goodman.
We get Camille Gutte, first time since season 1.
I think it might be Camille Gawadi.
Okay.
Anyway.
Also, Camille Gawadi was in it.
Also, Camille Gawadi, who I love so much, and who I think we may be able to get on the show.
Great. Would love to talk to her.
Because she is, I gotta say, in the I don't know what you call it, the catalog of great Prison Break dimples.
I mean, it's insane. Her dimples actually are contracted separately.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see that they were also in the episode.
Yeah. They have their own writer.
Oh yeah, they have their own trailer.
They do.
The dimples are walking. The dimples are walking.
The dimples are walking. The dimples have requested avocado toast. All right. Would you want to get us off and running?
Episode 217, Bad Blood, aired on February 19th, 2007, which is actually 2 weeks after episode 216 aired. We're not sure why the show wasn't on the week in between, but the day the show would have aired, there was a mass shooting in Salt Lake City called the Trolley Square shooting. It's possible the news coverage on Fox at Night preempted all other programming. We do know the episode was co-written by showrunner Paul Scheuring and one of our main writers, Karen Usher. It was directed by Nelson McCormick. The first 5 episodes Nelson would direct on the show. He would go on to become producing director of season 5 and the producing director of season 1 of Colony, starring Sarah Wayne Callies. Lovely director, great guy. And against the regular competition in the 8 p.m. time slot, the episode drew 9.55 million viewers.
So to recap this enormously complex and emotionally exhausting episode, Michael and Sarah go to the cigar club where the key that her father left her is meant to open a private box, but they have to flee before opening it. Warden Pope turns out to be a member of the cigar club, so they go visit him, and Michael convinces him to retrieve the contents of the private box in exchange for Michael surrendering himself to authorities, which is something we learn at the very end. What Pope finds in the box is some kind of audio recording. We're not entirely sure what it is. Only Kim arrives to claim it. But Michael, Lincoln, and Sarah save Pope and leave Kellerman behind to fend for himself.
Can't believe he played him like that.
Even after he shot a goon for them.
Yeah.
Which does seem completely fair to me, but also must have stung. Elsewhere, Teabag brings Mrs. Hollander's family to his childhood home, where he had been abused by his father and learned a lot about the dictionary. Mrs. Hollander refuses to stay with him, so he locks her and her children in the basement and then finally decides to free them and leave them alone. Meanwhile, C-Note takes his daughter Dee Dee to a hospital. And eventually, Mahone catches up to him. C-Note finally surrenders and makes a deal with Mahone to deliver Schofield in exchange for his wife KC's freedom and Dee Dee's health care. And in Ixtapa, Sucre finds Mary Cruz at last, and the two escape the police together.
In First in Class news, on February 11th, Harvard University named historian Drew Gilpin Faust the first female president of the university in its 371 year history. Perhaps they didn't know Drew was a woman's name, and then they were like, at the first meeting, we're like, wait, what?
Wait, guys, I have such bad news. Such bad news.
Either we made a mistake or... Not to be outdone, in U.S. presidential news, Illinois freshman Senator Barack Obama officially announced his candidacy for president of the United States on February 10th. Obama would go on to beat Republican challenger John McCain, become the first black president of the United States in its 231-year history.
And on this day, the very day the episode aired in 2007, the number one song on the U.S. charts was Nelly Furtado's Say It Right. Despite that, the Grammys, held February 11th, were swept by the Dixie Chicks, who went on to win 5 awards, including Record of the Year. I once saw them live in concert, and they were wonderful.
I believe they're just the Chicks now.
They are, in fact, the Chicks. Yes, they got the memo about the Dixie part of their name.
Right.
But there was that whole thing where their lead singer, said something about George Bush.
That was during this era. This is right
that was
around
during
that.
this era. Yeah, and it blew up. It was actually the first time I'd heard of the Dixie Chicks because of that controversy. And finally, in microblogging news, February 19th was also the day that Tumblr was founded by David Karp. Tumblr was a social media app that became a huge thing and is already a dinosaur. And that is how fast.
I still don't know what Tumblr is.
No, me neither.
Okay.
Me neither. But there are people who started careers in journalism
on Tumblr.
On Tumblr.
So is it like Substack kind of?
Dude, I don't know what that is either. I'm afraid I am the
Do you know what
dinosaur in the room.
Pinterest is?
I've seen Pinterest, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Gen X. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back and talk about the episode.
These are my short T-Rex arms.
What's that? Oh, okay.
The T-Rex. Okay, we're back.
We're back.
Things to talk about.
Woo. Yeah.
Okay. Quick story before we get into the who I feel emotionally manipulated about this. I'm having some emotions. I got real mad at a certain point during the rewatch. Got sad. But quick camera story. While we were filming, this is the worst thing I've seen happen to a camera almost ever on a set. While we were filming the scenes in front of the stunt stuff, in front of the cigar club, where Pope comes out, is met by, I keep wanting to call him Reggie. Is Reggie's name? Kim. Michael and Sarah see that he's in trouble. They pull up.
Yeah.
They hit big stunt sequence. As we were setting up one of the shots in that sequence, I want to say it was coverage on Dom because I remember the camera pointed at him.
Okay.
Back when they were big film cameras, these things cost $250,000 a piece.
Yeeks.
And we were setting up a shot, handheld, and the operator kind of goes like this, points to his shoulder. He's ready for the camera. Camera assistant puts the camera on the shoulder. Operator grabs the matte box, which is the way a lot of operators operate the camera because you've got the most amount of control.
Oh, no, I know what's going to happen.
Holds the matte box. Camera goes
it's not properly attached. The matte box.
Behind them. Onto pavement. We all hear a smash. There may or may not have been a tinkle of glass. I'm not sure if I added that later in my imagination.
Yeah.
I immediately, for some reason, looked at Dom, and Dom was like, oh, shit. I think it was pin drop quiet for a sec. There was that beat of oh, no. Something real bad is afoot. And then they determined that the camera was not usable. Had to send somebody to the house in the Panasonic house in Dallas to have another one. So we were down a camera. Never saw that camera assistant again.
Really?
I don't know if they're buried in the desert somewhere in West Texas.
Right.
Oof. But the
I don't remember that for some reason. I don't know.
The operator held up the matte box as if to be dude, not my fault. I actually think because that was that part of the scene, you're shooting someone. I think you were far enough away.
Yeah, and also I may not have been on set even. We were probably shooting that whole thing in pieces.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just that was the worst thing I've ever seen happen. I think Dom ran over a camera season 4, but worst operator, not operator error, but that was a moment where everybody's bellies just went upside down.
Oh, I feel terrible for everyone involved in that.
I know, for everyone, especially the assistant who is probably buried someplace in West Texas.
Yes.
Okay, but the meat of this thing.
Yeah. Family, children. What you're willing to do for children. I mean, ultimately, even Pope saying to Michael, I treated you like my own son.
Oh,
There's a whole theme going on here, right? Which is, well, first of all, I mean, obviously, it starts with Mahone calling his son in the hospital.
His son played by like this stone cold little gangster who's just like.
And he's going to go visit his son. That's why he buys the bear, but then he gets called away.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
But sorry, you cannot return the bear, sir. I hope you have another little child you can give it to later.
Yeah, if only there's another kid you can visit in the hospital.
And then he calls the FBI office, and Barbie Harris is like, oh, I hope C-Note's kid keeps getting sicker because we'll definitely catch him. And he's like, you don't have kids, do you? She's like, nope.
And by the way, what I loved about her delivery was her
like,
delight. She was like, sure don't.
Nope.
That sounds terrible.
And I drink wine and eat cheese, whatever I want to.
I go to Ireland by myself.
And
I'd fly first class.
Right? And I am well rested, and I have a 401k.
Totally. It is.
And you should see all
beautiful.
the stairs in my house and all the heavy glass sculptures.
I have a white couch.
Yep.
Like.
Yep.
So lots of kid stuff. So here's an interesting thing with the hindsight of the way the show was received. Because if I'm remembering correctly, at the time, there was a bit of like hate for C-Note, quote unquote, being a snitch. And
For this move.
For agreeing to turn in Schofield. I can't remember what happens with that.
So his daughter, I do. His daughter needs
life-saving
medical care, and a lot of this episode is showing that he just cannot get it while on the run because America.
Which parenthetically is an interestingly quintessentially American, like just as the death penalty.
Yeah.
Which is the premise of season 1. So many people around the world are like, death penalty? We don't let the state execute these. Like, I wonder how it feels to our European, for instance, listeners being like, is this really? And yes, by the way, yes, this is really what the medical system is like. Sorry, I interrupted. Go on.
No, so he makes a deal that, he's going to get his daughter medical care. He's also going to reunite his daughter and her mother.
Mm-hmm. Got his wife out of prison.
Which is... Yeah, and so he's basically going to be like, I'm going to preserve the functional part of this family, and I'm going to give myself up, but that's not enough. I'm also going to give up Schofield.
Right. Which, of course, he didn't want to do, but Mahone, is like, just you isn't enough.
Yeah.
So what's interesting to me, as people talk to me about this show and as we hear from fans, so many people are like, T-Bag is my favorite character, and C-Note is
a snitch,
and I don't like him. And I found myself having a big emotional reaction to feeling as though, and I'm owning this is all me. I'm not saying this is like how it was written, but feeling as though the script was asking me to develop a level of compassion for T-Bag because of his tragic backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And on the one hand, it plays into a trope that I really hate, which is that people who are sexually abused as kids become abusers, because that's actually statistically not true. It is true that, so this is the interesting logic of it. It is true that many people who are child abusers were abused themselves.
Right.
It is also true that most people who are abused as children do not go on to abuse others.
Right.
I got mad that I felt like the show was asking me to have sympathy for someone who had done so many awful things. And also, like, I feel like it felt like I was watching a scene of psychological domestic violence between Teddy and Mrs. Hollander from his perspective. And I was sitting there going, I don't want to be in his perspective. I want to be in hers. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be with her being like, I am being gaslit, lied to,
Yeah.
manipulated, held hostage, kidnapped, like all of these things.
I didn't have that response, but I hear what you're saying.
And again, I'm not saying it's the right response.
No,
it was just
of
interesting
course.
to observe in myself. I was like, I'm having some big emotions.
I
right
mean,
now.
I was surprised remembering how sympathetic it made me originally. Now realizing that you're getting this whole experience while he's holding she and her children captive. You're like, oh, this is a moment of horrible abuse. So it wasn't like
in like a murder shack in Alabama.
well, it's also like it's not like it's not like he put them in the car
Right.
and went inside and is having these memories. It's like they're right fucking there.
They're right there.
And he's doing the same thing to them.
Yes.
So yeah,
And I mean, I think the upshot of those scenes is supposed to be Teabag looks at his life and goes, "Oh dear God, I've become the thing that I always."
Yeah.
Him recognizing the intergenerational trauma and like,
Yeah, I mean,
I am
already
becoming the thing. I've become the thing.
He's already presumably a child rapist, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And serial killer.
And serial killer.
And yeah, and I, whatever. I'll just say it one more time, then I'm done. I was mad at the show for asking me to feel empathy towards him. And really wild to look back at the fan reaction to the loyalty to Teabag. Although I think some of it's a lot of an I love to hate it. But the hate piled on to C-Note for being a snitch. It's like, I don't know. I cannot promise that in the same situation, in order to save a sick child of mine, that...
Sorry, no brainer.
Yeah. And we mentioned on the rewatch that we had a fan who'd written in and said, I'm rewatching this as a mom, and the C-Note family story really gets me now. So
I want to talk about that because my problem with it mostly is that thing of like, well, now it's happening to me. Now I understand. Like certain political movements where you're like, oh, well, now that I'm affected by this, now I care about it.
Right.
You're like, well, you didn't have the imagination to think that someone could care for their child that much. Like, I feel like there's a little bit of, I don't know. That might be my own, just like you said. I'm not saying there's a right reaction or a wrong reaction because I definitely feel things differently, and my perspective on so many things have changed since having a child, certainly. But I'm also like, well, shouldn't we just be able to expand our imaginations better and our capacity for empathy?
what about this as a possible response to it, which is that, yes, you see this differently now that you've got a kid, but you're also just 20 years older. And in that time, your capacity for empathy does grow, right? Like,
don't you think I think a lot of people move the opposite way, but okay.
Yeah, but I think something about a career in the arts makes that less likely.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like, our job is to crack our hearts open
Yeah.
and feel shit on camera.
100%.
And so I guess what I'm saying is I'd be interested to have this conversation, for instance, with Barbara Eve Harris, who mentioned something about this, like not having kids. But is there a difference between the way you see this show 20 years ago as someone who didn't have kids? I would imagine the answer is yes.
Yes, I see what you're saying.
Because you are just 20 years more emotionally mature and you've got a better ability to be like, oh, yeah, I can't judge that. I can't judge that. I just feel like the older you get, I'll speak for only myself. The older I get, the more I'm like, yep, can't judge that. Yep, can't judge that. Yep, that's not my place. Ooh,
Yeah, I don't know your
I
life.
would have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
You know?
And yet, and I'm not being clever when I say this, we're having less empathy for Teabag.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we're also saying like, yeah, fuck off. Sorry. I don't care what happened to you. You don't get to do that to people.
And for what it's worth, I don't think that that's the most evolved response. Like, I think if I were...
I'm not suggesting, yeah.
spiritually like the person I most want to be, I'd be able to be like, yeah, you were hurt. And but it's also, I think part of, and this is actually another thing that I think I've sort of come to the older I get, is there's a point at which, are you responsible for, you're not responsible for you're not responsible for the source of your trauma as a child because you didn't put it there. But I do think there becomes a point where it's like you are responsible for the effect it has on other people as an adult.
Correct.
You choose to heal or you choose not to heal. I say this as somebody who has a lot of healing to do and like radically imperfect. But the like, I had a tough childhood response. I find at a certain point, I'm like, yeah, that's fair. And I can have empathy for that. But also then it becomes your responsibility to manage your response to that trauma so that you're not re-traumatizing other people and just passing this down and spreading it everywhere you go. And, I mean, the weird thing is I think that's exactly in some way the realization that Teabag comes to, which is I got to stop the spread of this thing. I just can't I want to be a better person, but I can't find empathy for somebody who sexually abuses kids. Like, no. I just can't, I'm like, I will work on other parts of my spirit.
I find empathy for them siloed from giving them a pass. I mean, there's a difference.
Sure. Yeah. And on a different day, I might too. Today,
no, I have empathy
for
you. I have empathy for you. What happened
cover
to you?
him.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, Jay, cover him in gasoline to light a match. Like, you know what I mean? By the way, a slightly lighter note. You mentioned there was a shot with you on a curb that looked like a real live stunt.
Oh.
That was kind of gnarly to watch, where when we leave you, like Sarah locks the door. We're driving away from the Cigar Club. We leave you behind. You have your hand on the door as we're driving away. And you stumbled. Like, tell me more.
I feel like the way I remember it is I put my hand on the door and because Sarah literally locks him out. And then it was like, as he pulls away, I'll run with it for a few feet. And I think what we talked about, and I may be getting this wrong, but is that they were fine with it as long as I stayed on the curb because the car's in the street.
Right.
But what wasn't great about that was the curb kind of runs out, I think. Mm-hmm. And there's always a little more adrenaline, as is now well established, a little more adrenaline on the day.
Yeah.
That my foot went into the street at one point. I just lost my balance, basically. And I just remember it wasn't like I was going to get run over by the back of the car. It was just more like I almost broke my ankle going down.
When you almost fell into the car as it drove away.
Like, it would have been. It looks really. Yeah, it looks good.
It looks great. I'm glad they got it on camera. But it also, as I was watching it, I was like, "Yikes! This looks like this could have gone wronger." It also occurs to me that there's a great shot where Sarah manually locks the door with one of those chrome pins that goes into the door.
Chink, yeah.
Blink. I wonder how far back somebody in the writer's room called production and was like, "Hey, we need
one of those cars." Yes.
With so that it's not like close up on a button that's like think.
Well, it is a button actually.
Well, no,
wait,
but
did
like
you
I physically this was the windows here, and it was physically a
you see your
boom.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
and I loved those. I loved those things.
Through the window, and it's all shiny and chromy, and it's one of those things that someone somewhere had a conversation about it.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, and also you mentioned something about that scene between you and Dom on the roof.
Yeah, I remember having a real problem with that scene.
I somehow remember you telling me about that.
I just didn't. I don't know.
We had a conversation on the day or something. Tell me more.
I don't know. I just remember feeling like there was nothing I wanted I don't think it's written right, or I need to adjust anything. I just couldn't get the thing about the black hole and the kind of the nihilism from Kellerman felt This is looking back on it. I don't think I could have identified it at the time. It felt like it had come out of nowhere. Like we're gonna die. Like this is useless and we're gonna die. I had trouble. Oh, I mean, I still am, but I was pretty. You get a little looser as you go on and on. I was very Meisner-y. And I was like, what am I? I couldn't figure out what I was trying to get from him by telling him that in that moment.
Oh,
I couldn't
interesting.
I faked it okay, but I couldn't figure out why is he telling Lincoln this? Like, this is all pointless. We're going to die. We're going to die. And I'm going to take as many people with me as I can. And
Especially
look,
for somebody who's so task and
well, I think maybe that's it.
mission
and now,
oriented.
Of course, now 20 years, and like you said, more maybe empathy later. I think, oh well, obviously, he's defending himself against Lincoln's accusation that he's heartbroken.
Right.
So there you go. It's just a lie. It's just like maybe a self-deluding, but like a bit of a lie. Which is, oh no, it's just all dark, and I'm going to kill as many of them as I can. And then she goes, she must have really broken your heart, man.
Do you think he means it, or do you think he's just bullshitting Lincoln? Like
Kellerman?
Yeah.
I think maybe he doesn't. I think I could have. It would have been easier for me to play if I was just like, he doesn't really 100% mean this. He's not going to tell this guy the fucking truth.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to know about me.
You don't.
I mean, I think it played fine.
I like the way it was shot. The backovers.
French overs is how I've always heard that. It's described. Backover, yeah.
Yeah, same thing. I think, first of all, did they cross shoot it? Did they? Because you can do that with French overs.
I think they did.
So that's kind of nice.
Also,
you're reacting in real time.
It's one of those things where it's almost. The scene almost dictates that it's back shot, or backovers, because we're pressed up against the ledge of a building.
On a real ledge of a real building.
You can't get.
You'd have to back people up.
Yeah, and it would look shitty. It would look like, where's the camera? Are they floating out in space?
Yeah. But it's still, what I think is interesting, what can be interesting about that angle is often it's a little like, do you believe them? Do they believe each other? Like, it can evoke a kind of because it's the first real conversation you guys ever had, just the two of you, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's one of those cool Prison Break moments that I kind of like, where it's like, oh, these characters have been in the same show and not just the two of them in a scene for 37 episodes now, give or take.
That's right.
What do they have to say to each other?
What do we have to say to each other?
And that's kind of interesting. Yeah.
I just remember never feeling good about it.
I remember you talking to me about
this is going to become a theme. This is going to become a theme as we move forward this season.
Well, okay, so actually on that theme.
Yeah.
After our last episode, I was thinking about the pregnancy.
Oh.
And thinking about there were certain aspects of that performance that I thought were too restrained.
Of your performance?
Mm-hmm. No, yours. I'm giving you notes now.
Please.
No, of mine. And I felt that way actually in the scene at the Pope's house too. And I remember on the day feeling like this was directed and staged and kind of written as a conversation between Michael and Pope. And the best thing that I can do is kind of be in the background, which even at the time I was like, right, but Pope and Sarah worked together for years before Michael was ever there. But it's just it's fine. It's his show. But I still felt like it was a little too restrained and held back. And it was an interesting, I can't remember if it was partly because I was just throwing up all the time and felt constantly ill. But I also think there was a little bit of a in those early months of the pregnancy, a resistance to flooding my system with the like constant chaos, panic stakes of the show.
Do you think that was... Sorry, go on.
It was not conscious. It was not conscious. But as I'm watching my work in the first 2 seasons, there's more times in this episode and the previous one that I'm like, I don't know. I think if I were directing this, I'd be like, I think this can mean more to you. I think you can be a little more desperate. I think
a little more out of control or a little more riled up.
Yeah. I mean, the stakes, I think, are a little higher. Like, I love the scene between Michael and Sarah where it's like, you still owe me dinner, because that's their vibe. Their vibe is like, we're very casual with each other. This is my way of saying I love you and I will wait for you and I blah, blah, blah. Fine. But in the scene with Pope, the need to step forward and go, please fucking listen to me. You are saying nothing I haven't already said. I don't know. It was an interesting thing to observe.
I hear you. Nice mug. I
Thank you.
Would push back on that, given what I see just as a viewer and using my director brain, which is it feels like it's all in there, but what it felt to me like, both Michael and Sarah know that any histrionics aren't going to work with this man. Like, you know this man very well. Like you said, he's an authority guy. He's a by the book guy, but he does have a deep sense of justice, that you were trying to remain calm, because the more hysterical and unhinged, it's going to be less convincing, frankly.
Yes.
I mean, I thought it was super effective to say, I've asked all these same questions. Like, I've said all these same things to Michael. That's very effective because it's very rational.
Yeah. I think there's a world where you can see that she's holding the lid on to more underneath. That's all. Anyway, not to over...
No, I get it.
Not to overthink
it also must
but,
be strange. I mean, just like with anything, when we're revisiting, you were visiting the day that you did it, and you're like, oh, right, I remember I had a stomach ache. You're like, oh, really? You really had a stomach ache.
I was growing a human.
Yeah.
Growing a human. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we take a little break and do some fun fan stuff?
Camera, Camille, Furious, Insurance.
Camille.
First Dead. Oh, I remember when we broke Stedman out of his place and Kellerman kills the two of the guys guarding him. It felt really like, oh, this is a next level, just kind of random, just raining random death down on people.
Oh.
Like everyone else Kellerman has killed, there would kind of been a direct threat or... and then this one is just murder a guy in the street. Just felt very like, wow, he just doesn't get care anymore.
And we don't really care about the character either.
I mean, we don't even know
built up in
like
any
you said,
way.
it's a goon.
We're just like, it's a goon.
Yeah. And I remember
really
on the day
point.
being like, there's no like, okay. I guess that's what
we're just going to shoot this guy.
I guess that's what he does now. It makes sense. It makes sense as an escalation, certainly.
Well, and you did just say, I'm going to take as many of them down with me as I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah,
that's an interesting point.
And then do you want to take a break and take some fan questions?
Let's get to that after this break.
Oh, okay, great. We'll be right back.
Okay. Okay. So this week, in lieu of fan questions, we have had a few people write in either on Instagram or our email and very sweetly ask us to shout out some wonderful birthdays. So this is the birthday shout out episode.
Okay.
Which we will not necessarily make a habit out of, but I thought these were very sweet. So We've got a couple of these. There's 3. Paul, do you want to read one?
Yes,
do you
I
want me to
do.
start? All right. Take it away.
The first one comes from Eva B. in Germany, who wrote us this message. Hi, guys. First of all, I want to tell you how much we enjoy watching you two on Prison Break and how we also enjoy listening to your podcast. My little sister and I just recently started watching the show, and it has already become one of our favorites. She's now turning 14 on May 5th, and I was wondering whether you could maybe wish her a happy birthday. I know this would be an amazing surprise, and for sure would be one of the best birthday gifts she's ever gotten. That's why I would be incredibly grateful if you would help me out. All the best, and lots of love from Germany. Eva, you're a wonderful big sister. So Eva's little sister, happy 14th
That's us.
birthday.
Yeah.
What?
We don't know your name.
We don't know your name. So maybe Eva's not that great of an older sister, but I hope she knows your name.
Eva, I think she does.
Okay. Happy birthday.
I think she will.
And thank you for watching the show, and thank you for watching the podcast.
And now you should start thinking about what you're going to do for Eva for her birthday.
Right.
Yeah. So happy birthday to you. And then here's another one from Poland.
Oh.
This is from Alexandra J. She says, hello, Sarah and Paul. My friend Kinga and I are your big fans. The series you created is incredibly important to us. We watched it together during classes in college. I thought this was funny as I was writing it. I was like, oh, well, thank you, but also pay attention. Education is important. Anyway, I can honestly say it was the best time in college. Your acting allowed us to see 100% your dedication and commitment. We talk a lot about your series. We talk about the great love you managed to show, Sarah, but also the great transformation that can happen in a person and what a second chance means, which you showed, Paul. Also, we listen to your podcast, which allows us to relive these wonderful moments. I know it's an unusual request, but I would be the happiest person on earth if you gave me the honor of recording a short video with wishes for my friend Kinga, whom I love so much, on her birthday. It would be a dream come true. I send you lots of love and kisses. Kinga is turning 22 on August 1st. So happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Kinga.
I love that you guys have this amazing friendship. Do take your education seriously. And by the way, to both Alexandra and Eva B, your English is
Excellent.
phenomenal because you're clearly writing us in a second language. And bravo to you.
And finally, Carol O is turning 15 on June 3rd, and we want to wish her a happy birthday too. Happy birthday, Carol O.
Happy birthday to all these wonderful young people and the
so
people
cool.
who love them, which I think is amazing. And if you have a shout out for somebody you want to take care of, life is hard, you can call and leave us a voicemail. And we can shout out your friends too. It's 401-3-P-BREAK. That's 3-P-B-R-E-A-K. And with that, we're going to wrap it up with a final question that I have for Paul.
Oh.
I know you've answered our question of this season. So here's this one for you. If you had a secret box in a club somewhere to leave a final mystery to someone in your life after you died, Paul, what's in the box? What's in your wallet? What's in the box?
Wait, that's so many questions in one. What's in the box?
What's in the box? You have died. You leave a mystery key to
somebody.
And
I want to give them.
And what's in the box?
I mean, probably some family stuff.
Not your solo album that is unreleased.
Right. So a bunch of hard drives with half-finished songs on them. I don't know. You figure it out.
Make me famous posthumously.
There is I have a firebox, which is exactly
Smart
what it sounds
in
like.
California.
Yeah. And in there is birth certificates and shit like that. But there's also a few family things. There's a letter I received from my father. There's a letter I received from my grandmother. There is my grandfather. This is what made me think of that. My mother's father, my grandfather. There is his journal that he kept on the boat from Europe to America when he was 18, 17. And in the journal, he's trying to learn English, basically. That's why he's writing it in English, because he's coming to the new world. And literally.
From where?
From Poland. And Russia, Poland. And it describes seeing the Statue of Liberty. It's the whole thing.
Oh,
and it's, of course, this, it's coming apart. It's 100 years old.
Yeah.
So that would be in there. Maybe that would be in the cigar box.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's cool.
See, I knew you'd have a good answer.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you to
All right, I'm
everybody
going to
for
ask you
listening.
that one. That's going to be a good one. So be better prepared for that one.
You'll forget. We have a guest next episode. I'm going to get out of it.
No way.
Okay. Thank you for listening. As always, we invite you to check out our Watch Party episodes where you can watch the show with our real-time commentary. They're available on our Patreon community, which you can join on the show page wherever you're listening right now, or in the link of the show's Instagram bio. Thank you, and please be good to each other in hard times.
Prison Breaking with Sarah and Paul is a Caliber Studio Productions.
Your hosts have been inmates Sarah Wayne Callies and Paul Edelstein.
Our prison warden is producer Ben Haber.
Cutting us up in the yard is editor Luke Singer.
The frontman of our rock band is Paul Edelstein, who made the music.
Our prison yard tattoo artist, logo, and brand designer is John Nunziano and Little Big Brands. Check him out at www.littlebig.brands.com.
And follow the show on YouTube and Instagram at Prison Break Podcast. Email us at pbpodcast@caliber-studio.com or leave us a message at 301-401-3PBreak.
Prison Breaking with Sarah and Paul has been a Caliber Studio production. Thank you for listening.
See you soon.
Bye.